It's part 2 of our series, our top 10 elk hunting failure points. The goal of this series is to help you identify, find, and eliminate possible failure points that could turn opportunities into a woulda, coulda, shoulda stories that will be heard in elk camps all over the West this fall. And you can bet the farm, y'all, we've definitely experienced a few failure points in our day, and I'm sure there are plenty more to come. But that's all right. This elk hunting journey is all about learning moments. So y'all, let's get with it and just figure out this thing together. That discussion, some ElkBros shout outs and questions from our ElkBros mailbox. So my friends, pull up a chair, adjust your volumes just right, and welcome to Blue Collar Elk Hunting.
Welcome to Blue Collar Elk Hunting, brought to you by ElkBros.com, with your host Gilbert Ornelas and elk hunting coach Joe Gillia. You want to hunt elk? They live to hunt elk. Their goal is to share with you what they have learned grinding it out for over 30,000 seasons, doing what they love. So come on into camp and set a spell. Welcome to Blue Collar Elk Hunters.
Hello there, everyone. If it's your first time with us, glad to have you. Hope you enjoy the show. And as always, for those blue-collar hunters following our show and grinding it out with us every week, welcome back to Elk Camp. I'm Gilbert Ornelas, the host of your show, coming to you from Spring, Texas. And that's right, we got the Venezuelan Mafia in the house from the DFW area, Manano Grateron, and the Katy, Texas area. That's right, the one and only Luis Gonzalez. And from Burnett, Texas, the Flatlander himself, Mr. Cole Wilkes. And from Cimarron, we got them both tonight. We got the ninja, Leroy Chavez, and we got WWJGD is in the house. What would Joe Gillia do, guys? What's up, fellas?
You know
What's up, brothers?
Dude, how come I
What up, y'all?
like I look red compared to everybody here? What is up with this, man?
Yeah, I mean, you've taken it to another level. I mean, if
Hey,
you,
man, it was that first intro, Joe, that really got you rolling, my brother.
I'm glad nobody heard the first intro, man.
Well, at least you look red, but Luis looked, I mean, ugly, like pale.
I don't know. You guys
You're probably sick, Luis.
I look at everybody else, and I look at Luis and Manano and Chav. You guys are about the same color, and then Gilbert and Cole about the same color. I'm like red as friggin' Mars, man.
It's a baseball game you went to.
we haven't taken it to the next level like you with makeup and all of that, Joe.
Wow. That's what it is. You guys are more makeup.
He's got his own makeup person there.
Yeah, it's the same guy that got the haircut done for both Manano and Joe. They're giving it away
He's
for
yellow.
free.
She's yellow. You
That's
see.
because we ain't got the 12-year-old fade going on, bro. Don't start with that.
12-year-old face.
Yeah, they didn't have. They
This
don't have man salons. They don't have man salons there.
Fellas, it's good to see you, man. We got a hot one tonight, guys. Lots of stuff coming up with the failure points, and I know Joe's ready to kick it off.
Yep, absolutely. But before we get started into that, just want our listeners to know and understand that the bros, we're going to be taking June off for some family time. And what that's going to mean is we're still going to have our shows coming up. We're going to have some shows that we've already done, but the rest of the Failure Point series will continue when we start back up in July. And we've got a great lineup of some other things that are going to happen from July all the way through September to when we're up in the mountains again. So I just want everybody to know that, I've really decided to kind of go dark, to dedicate some time to family. We all need to do that. We're getting ready to get crazy once August and July is here, man. Or I think that goes July, August. I mean, really, guys, we're 3 months away from being back in the hills.
Crazy.
I can't wait, man.
Yeah. So
well, and our stuff's changed a little bit, so we got a little bit of anxiety built up with that. So at the end of the day, I mean, we're gonna get to go elk hunting all together, and I think that's
you know what, man, look, I'm friggin' excited, and I keep hearing this. It's going to be so much tougher, where you guys are going to go, and you're going to have to deal with all the people. And you know what?
Tough stuff in New Mexico,
dude, they got the juices flowing, man. I mean, my juices are flowing. It's like, let's rock, man.
Give me a challenge.
Heck yeah.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm sure. Yeah, we're gonna get out there with the rest of them and get after it, man.
That's it.
And in our camp, look, in our camp, we're going to have RC Knox. We got
Oh,
Colt
my
Wilkes in
gosh.
camp. We got the entire
God.
crew right here in the camp. You know, I've got another buddy that's going to be showing up in camp over there as well. And I mean, it's going to be such a cool time for all of us, man. We got the Mafia, and you know, at that time, you know, Manano is going to be putting on the show at camp, man. He's going to be showing everybody what's going on over there, and he will have his trusty assistant, you know, cooking right along with him over there. You know,
That's a right term. You just nailed it, Joe. You nailed it.
The truth of the matter is, you can be the lead cook.
I'm going to tell you right now,
cool
I'm
with
so
that.
excited to have RC Knox in camp with us. Y'all don't know how y'all probably heard me talk about RC, but he's one of my favorite guys. I've been elk hunting with him many, many moons, and he is like elk hunting royalty to me. So just having him be around us in camp is going to
let
be.
me tell you what, I have heard more from RC Knox in the last month. I mean, he is so excited to be tied in with the bros. He's excited about getting up in the hills. He's already talking about, do I shoot my nuclear bow? Do I shoot my recurve bow? And I mean, I have heard more from this guy in the last month than I've heard from him in the last 5 years, man.
I love that guy, man.
It's so
cool to have him back.
It is so cool to hear that passion. But I just want everybody to know, you know, when we go dark in June, you know, our regular business, like if you buy stuff from the store, that's still going to happen, but you won't see us on Instagram. Emails won't be as quick to get responded to. We will still have a show out every Thursday, and we got some pretty cool stuff, and hopefully you enjoy that till all of us get back together. And I think all of us need to take that time and reflect a little bit and reach down deep inside and find ourselves, you know. But I mean,
it's going to be good, Joe. We're going to be playing ball traveling. So,
Yep.
I mean, it's
Well,
going to be
this conversation took a whole different route of what I was expecting.
But hey,
it'll give everybody some time to get rid of some of those honeydews. You know, that stuff piles up before we leave anyway.
Yep.
And if you don't take care of mama, it ain't gonna be good when you get back, boy.
Absolutely, man.
Yeah, somebody's got problems with mama. That's what it's all about.
Yeah.
Somebody's learned to not have problems with
I hunt
mama.
4 months out of the year.
The other 8, man, it's taking care of TCB.
That's it.
Guys, you know what time it is. It's time for the ElkBros shout-outs. If you're new to our show, this just shout out to a few cities with the most listeners topping our charts this week.
And we do have a video shout out, man. And you guys,
nice.
So let's go ahead and get our video shout out rocking here.
Hey, everybody, it's Baker from Parker, Colorado. Want to give a big ElkBros shout out and a grinder shout out to all the guys here in Colorado who got their tags today. We drew our tags in our camp. We've got 3 elk tags, a bear tag, 2 deer tag. And this year, I'm going to be using my new adult arrow, 204,
Cool.
made by yours truly, Luis Gonzalez, the leader of the Venezuelan Mafia.
Oh, please.
Got some nice arrows too, but look at this bad boy. All right. So I want everybody to have a good season this year and elk up.
My man, somebody who really understands what's up.
But did you hear that?
Thank you, brother Scott.
Did you hear that at the end? He was like, Joe, you might have some really nice arrows too.
Yeah.
But look what I got. I'm sorry.
I got to get Luis to build me some now. I can't be the only one left out, man. Manano's going to show up in camp with these big heavy ass arrows.
Oh no, he ain't.
Oh, no, he ain't.
Oh, no, he ain't.
No, he ain't.
Well,
Yeah.
I'm gonna give him a try, Luis. We're gonna get together this week, and then.
Hey, but when Baker was talking trash, though, bro, when he was like that, and he was like, you know, look what I got. I said, all right, man, let's see who gets blood on the arrow first.
Well, I guarantee you put an elk in front of me, it ain't gonna matter whether it's got horns or hide on it. It's getting bloody. I'm telling you.
Yeah, it don't matter if it's an adult diaper or it's a child diaper, right?
And Scott is extremely positive, confident man. Talked to him today. He's like, man, this is the year. It's going to happen. We're going to make it happen. We're pumped. We're excited. We can't wait. So it's pretty cool. Pretty cool to see that, man.
Yep.
Thank you, Scott.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Scott.
Okay, this week's top listening city takes its name from the largest natural body of water in North Dakota and the second largest body of water after Lake Sakakawea.
That's right.
The Dakota tribe considered the lake holy until they believe the Dakota tribe considered the lake holy because they believe it is the home of the underwater serpent Unc-Tehai, a mythical being like a goblin with a bad disposition. Homesteaders misunderstood the legend, and with marketing in mind when naming the town, they came up with their closest version of the being in Devil's Lake, North Dakota.
Devil's
Lake.
North Dakota in the house.
Lake Sakakawea is beautiful.
It is. I've been on Sakakawea.
Unbelievable.
We caught walleye on
Sakakawea?
Yeah.
Sakakawea.
You know, I've been
Beautiful.
seeing a lot of people pulling walleye out lately, and that is one incredibly good eating fish right there. Man.
Fantastic.
Unbelievable. But so am I hearing this right that the lake was holy because they felt like it was this goblin type mythical being, and so the people that named the town didn't have a name for that being, so they just called it a devil. Is that what I'm hearing? Oh, okay.
Yeah. Serpent.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
North Dakota, man. We got some buddies up in North Dakota. You guys, that's that oil field country you guys have been
Big
to,
time.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Spend a lot of time up there, man.
You
hey,
betcha.
all our listeners up
First place I ever met Luis Gonzalez
That's right. That's where we met, brother.
in North Dakota,
there,
just outside of Williston.
right, I'm trying to figure out if that was a good or a bad thing, bro.
I know it's a good thing.
Right.
We're here today.
It was actually north of Dickinson, northeast of Dunn Center.
That's right. Northeast of Dunn County.
Awesome, man.
Yep.
You're up next.
sure.
You go.
Yes, sir. This city is located in the north end of the Willamette Valley between Portland and Salem. Originally named Halsey, the residents looked for a different name because there was already another Halsey, Oregon. The new name came about after a controlled burn got out of hand and burned a woodlot in the 1880s. It was one of the local railroad officials that witnessed the fire and renamed the community Woodburn, Oregon.
Woodburn, Oregon.
Oregon
showing up
Washington just
again,
keep
man.
Showing up, man.
And
So
is
cool.
Is that Willamette? Because
Willamette. Willamette? Oh,
Okay.
gotcha.
Yeah, because I always get that wrong, man. And I had
Valley.
guys that tell me, like, come on, Joe, let's get this straight. So
Imagine our buddy Tony Wintrip got it right.
I bet he does, man. Hey, Tony, how you doing, bud, man?
This top listening city is recognized as the fastest growing large city in Iowa. Located in Dallas County, which is one of the fastest growing counties in the United States. Apple Inc. chose this city as the location of a massive $1.38 billion data center. Folks, believe it was named after the Milwaukee Railroad in 1978. This is going to Waukee, Iowa.
Waukee, Iowa.
Iowa.
How cool is that?
Crazy.
The Midwest showing up.
That's a shot in the economic arm when somebody comes in and puts a $1.38 billion
Data center.
Yeah.
Man.
Big shot in the arm.
Yeah.
All right. Next up, commonly thought to be named in association to the Spanish explorer Ponce de Leon. The town is actually named in its location for its location on the Leon River. The city hosts one of the oldest festivals in Texas, the Peach and Melon Festival. It began in 1914, and among its many activities are events like carnival, car show, tractor pull, and watermelon slicing. The Guinness World Record for watermelon seed spitting, 75 feet and 2 inches, was proudly set right here in De Leon, Texas. Man, that's one heck of a spit. How can you 75 freaking feet, man?
75 feet. So I'm like, all right, being a track coach and everything, I'm like, okay, I want to know the weight of this seed. Was it the same weight as everybody else?
Everybody else's.
Unbelievable, man.
That's such a cool little town too. It's right north of it's right north of Proctor Lake there between Stephenville and Comanche, and really neat town. I've been up there running through the oil field and stuff like that, and then had to go fish Proctor Lake with a friend of mine who's from up there who guides. I guided for him deer hunting for a long time out in West Texas. He's from that area up there. So
when you drove
really
into
cool
that town, they have a picture of the dude that set that Guinness World Record?
I hadn't seen it, Joe, but I wasn't really paying attention. We'd had a couple of cold beers that night and went and ate chicken fried steak, and I probably wouldn't have cared what it looked like. So there's a good cafe in town that serves chicken fried steak. That's for sure.
What's the name of that cafe, bro? Come on.
I want to say it's Brady's or something like that. I can't remember off the top of my head what the name of the cafe was.
So if
really
the name of the cafe is Brandy's, the owner's going like, it's Brandy's.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
All right. This city is host to California's Midwinter Fair and is 19 miles from Mexicali, Mexico. This Southern California city is located in the Colorado Desert. The Colorado Desert, an extension of the larger Sonoran Desert. Its location is at the intersection of two major tectonic plates, the San Andreas Fault and the northernmost extension of the East Pacific Rise Fault. This region is subject to earthquakes, but ironically, it's considered the safest city in California, Imperial, California.
Imperial, California.
That's crazy. How many earthquakes do you think they get like every couple months or so?
Apparently he's the safest one, so maybe they don't get much.
Oh, no. Being right on that fault, you'd think it'd be a lot.
So I wonder if the whole safest city rating has anything to do at all with the earthquakes, or is more like
way
crime or something like that. You know? I mean,
like crime.
Yeah, I bet it's all crime.
Yeah, yeah. So the last
It's funny how they combine the irony of the
earthquake with
earthquakes and then saying it's the safest city.
I've never heard of Imperial, California. So you guys, man, that are listening out there, we are glad to have you on the show tonight, and we're glad to give you the shout out, bud. And let us know if there's a Airbnb we can go stay at, because I want to go someplace safe, man.
Joe, that cafe I ate at in De Leon is called the Highway 6 Cafe.
It wasn't even close to Brady's.
I know what I said.
Well, maybe they sell a lot of beer in that cafe, and he didn't remember. Man, come on.
I sure didn't.
You didn't even care.
I remember where we were when we went there.
All right. Awesome. Hey, so the topic of tonight's show, guys, we are continuing from last time, and this is the top 10 elk hunting failure points and how to avoid them. And guys, look, it's going to be tough because we're going to keep going through and listing these failure points. And understand something, you guys that are listening out there, guys and gals that are listening. And remember, when I say guys, I'm an ex-coach. I coach both girls and boys together, and I referred to my whole team. I said, guys, come here. I mean, it was just everyone. So I don't mean to discriminate there. But one thing that we want you to realize is that there's two things that has to happen, man, in order for you to be successful. And one that I believe in. Number one, you have to create opportunities. And there's a whole gamut of what we coach to be able to create those opportunities. And second thing is, man, he or she who makes the least mistakes usually wins, man, just like any ball game, right?
Sure.
And by eliminating failure points, those things that are going to show or rear their ugly head at the wrong time, in the wrong situation, when things are tight, when you have an opportunity to punch that tag, that's when things go south on you, man. So what we are doing is you're actually going to get a ton more than 10, but we're going to have to figure out, y'all, what we're going to check mark as our top 10 when we get done with this list. So right now we have already talked about poor shot selection, poor decisions after the shot, the viralaques, or, letting the nerves and emotions get in the way of focus and execution, as far as being a failure point. And I don't know that I think we talked about a few things like how to avoid that, but I'm not sure if the answer to that was as clear as it could be, but I think that's something that really needs to be talked about a lot. I think that's something that we need to talk about in a whole podcast, because I also think that that our bro that brought it up, Luis, has really changed a lot in his hunting from what I've seen. So I think that's going to be a great conversation sometime. And we also talked about hunting elk where and when we have the smallest window for an encounter being a failure point. Now, these have not, except for poor shot selection, the rest of those weren't probably something that you originally thought about, as far as a failure point. I mean, you could have a bull coming in and go to scream a bugle and have your reed go wah on it and be a failure point, right? I mean, anything that could cause a situation to go south. So what we're going to do is we're going to continue that discussion. We're going to keep putting those things down, and we're going to let each of our guys contribute, and we're going to have those conversations and take that wherever it leads us. So I believe, Chav, you weren't with us last time. Manano wasn't with us last time. We're going to let you guys kind of go on this first. And Chav, we're going to start with you, bud, and what you want to bring up as what you see as a top 10 failure point.
Okay. Well, I'm going to start with one that probably isn't in the top 10, but it's something that you need to be aware of. This is a failure point that could end your hunt before it even starts. And I have 3 instances, and I think it all occurred to you, Joe. You might correct me if I'm wrong, because as memory serves me, we had some weird stuff happen early. And this has to do with transportation, because a lot of times we hunt out of camp,
right?
But most of the time we drive to an area in our 4-wheeler and then start the hunt. Mm-hmm. Or in our earlier days, we drive the truck to a point and hunt from there. Mm-hmm. So see if you remember these failure points. I'll start with the truck incident first. We were actually deer hunting in Sugar Eat Canyon up in Raton. And I had killed my first mule deer, and I dragged it down the hill across a paved road and waited for Joe. And when he came down and saw the deer, he was really excited. And, I wasn't strong enough to put the deer in the back of the pickup. Joe was. He put it in the pickup, and we took off to go downtown to celebrate. And halfway there, Joe pulls over and he goes, "I don't remember putting my bow in the truck."
Oh, yeah.
So he got out, and sure enough, no bow. He had put the bow on top of the cab and took off. So we went back up the hill, only a 10, 15-minute drive. The bow was gone. So never found it, but Joe got a new bow out of it. But the whole thing, the point of that is we were lucky that we were, close to Cimarron, where he could actually go back to town and pick up a backup bow. So keep backup bow in mind. Another point, I don't recall exactly how we were carrying the bows, but they were not in a bow case. Right. And this is elk hunting. And one of the bows, and I think it was yours, it might have been mine. This is the one I'm not really sure of.
It was yours.
It was mine. It grabbed a limb and just blew the bow up.
Yeah.
So, once again, I was lucky enough that we were able to drive to town and, pick up a backup bow, because nobody takes a bow press to camp, I don't think, unless you have a lot of time.
Actually, bro, I don't know if you remember, we created a bow press with a come along and 2
okay, yeah.
Do not do this at home.
Do not do this at home. Yeah.
Okay.
And you couldn't do this with today's bows, and it depends on the type of bow that you have. But yeah, I mean, the way they get compressed today with those parallel limbs is way different than the way they used to be, where you could kind of, pull them through and kind of compress those down a little bit. But what happened with Chav's bow was, again, we're on the 4-wheeler, and he's holding his bow by the handle. A small branch comes in, goes underneath, and gets between, his string and his cam on the end, pulls. And so what does that do when it pulls?
It derails the string from the cam and just blows it up.
Rolled it right off and boom, just blew it up. So,
wow.
guys, do not travel anywhere on an ATV, UTV without having your bow in a case, because I did it one time and actually just got mud inside.
Yeah, that was the third incident where you got mud and it blew your bow up too.
Blew my bow up. And
On the same note, something that happened to me was I didn't have a hard case.
Mm-hmm.
I had a soft case, and I was, we were tying them up on the back of the four-wheeler with bungee cords, and the vibration actually moved my sight. Mm-hmm. And so you don't check that when you get off the vehicle and grab your bow and start walking. You can draw it and everything draws just fine, but if the sight is moved, then you're not going to be on point.
I thought Manano loosened your sights.
Yeah. Yeah. He tries. He tries.
It always calls that.
Look, I carry a backup bow every time I go to camp. I think it's perfect what Chav's talking about.
Yeah.
If you got a backup bow, you better bring it, especially if you're going to be in the woods 7 to 10 days. Anything can happen. Sometimes when we fall down and crack something on a rock, at the end of the day, you don't want that to happen to you, because if you crack your string on a rock, it's going to cut it down. When it cuts it down, you will not have other strings back at camp. And not many now, Luis may be bringing a bow press with him, because I think he likes to change all kinds of stuff on his bow. But at the end of the day, he may bring a bow press with him, but I'm still going to bring my backup bow that I'm very proficient with. And that's another thing. Make sure.
Well, what makes you trip?
I've done it. I've been coming down a steep hill before and actually step on a stick with one foot.
Yeah,
and then lift that stick up.
Yeah.
And I hang it with my other foot.
Oh, the other foot, man. There's no getting out of that one. There's no getting out of that one.
I ate it.
Yeah,
I
you go ass over
downhill
cheek
like 3 or 4 times and go. I stand up and my whole side housing has been over like a half inch.
It happens, man. Look, I'm telling you, we were chasing a herd a couple of years ago, me, Chav, Joe, and everybody, and we were on the hard move, and I fell and landed on my knee. I'm going to tell you what, I thought I broke my leg on that mountain. I was so mad, dude. Oh, my God, I was mad. I was mad, number one, because I knew I shouldn't have been going that hard after being so wore out, but I also was mad because I didn't pick my foot up high enough for that turf monkey to grab my dadgum foot. I was mad, and when I landed on them rocks, there is nothing fun about landing on a volcanic rock with your leg. I threw my bow away from me so I didn't land on it, because I had an arrow knocked up. I mean, we're chasing a herd of elk, and anytime we're above them, right? So they're trickling down below me. Anytime one could walk right up in front of me, and here I am, So it was kind of haywire, and but I have been lucky. I've only had one guy come to camp with me. Pat Salvo came to camp with me, and he had something going really wrong with his bow. And I mean, he would shoot at animals and shoot at 40 yards in another direction. I mean, it was crazy what was going on with his bow. So we had to finally rig mine down and get it to where he could shoot it for the rest of it.
Don't wait until you get to camp to try your bow out.
Right.
So Cole, do you have a backup bow?
No, actually that year I did not.
Right now, do you have one?
Oh, yes, sir, I do.
Yeah, but
yes,
Beto, do you have a backup bow?
I sure do.
Chav, you have a backup bow. Joe, you have a backup bow, right?
Now he does.
I've never.
Right? Yeah, I do too. Manano, do you have a backup bow?
So it's really interesting.
Oh, okay.
So
no, I just wanted to. That's all. We can move on to the next subject.
Okay, Joe has killed, 38, 37 elk in his entire life, and he just got his backup bow.
Yeah, but you haven't.
I don't need a backup bow. I only need one arrow.
Okay. Yeah, you said that last time. And how many did he shoot? Like 7?
But I killed my bull.
and to that point though, man, I mean, I was very fortunate. That situation where Chav's talking about, I blow my bow up. I did not have a backup bow with me at camp. I ended up basically driving out of the mountain, going all the way home, and which took me, I didn't get home till that night. And told my wife that I guess this isn't the year, man, because I had a bow in the house that had not been set up. It was one of my old bows that I shot. But again, I'm instinctive, and I managed just to get everything set up after she gave me the riot act about the fact that, I was feeling sorry for myself, blah,
Yeah.
blah, blah, So
That was a cool story. That's, yeah.
Loretta set me straight, and I grabbed the bow and went out, shot it, went back, showed up, and next day killed an elk the next day with another bow. So, I don't even know if I would, I've never carried a backup bow. So Chav's giving great advice. There's, man, if you're going to drive 20 or 30 hours, I mean,
your hunt could end right there.
And that extends to the release and potentially a rangefinder as well.
Yeah.
I got both of them in my pack.
Didn't you get peanut butter or something on your release, Luis, for you had to change
Must have been
releases?
Manano.
Or am I dreaming
That's
about
probably
that?
Manano.
So on that note, with I want to go back to the whole first. The release is, at least find out if something were to happen with your release, if you could shoot an elk with your fingers under 30 yards, 20 yards. Find out what that's like, if that's something that you can do. You might not be able to.
My brace height is so small, I don't think you can.
Yeah.
Might be able to do it with 2 fingers, but I couldn't do it with 3. And
Right.
pulling my bow back with 2 fingers, man, I might have to
You guys saw me do it, and you saw me hit that tree so hard.
Luis could-
That tree's dead.
He just
the
missed.
bobcat.
He missed a bobcat like 5, 10 yards away.
Yeah, I didn't have
He
a
stuck
release.
an arrow like.
Yeah, it went.
And Chav makes another great point. Myself, him, and Joe one morning, we make a long run from camp in a UTV that I had borrowed from my cousin, and it's brand spanking new.
Oh, yeah.
I'm talking brand new, and an alternator goes out on the mule. Okay, we had no clue, right? I'm thinking it's a battery, so I buy a battery. Right. We get Luis and Manano are coming in a couple of days later. They're going to bring us a battery. So they bring us a battery. We put it on there, and I'm thinking it ran down again the next time. We knew something was wrong with the mule, right? But this is a brand new mule. It should be nothing wrong with it, right? So we have to come off the mountain, go take it into Raton, and then they fixed the mule in the same day. That was crazy, but from now on, I always carry an extra battery for my side-by-side or my four-wheel.
I thought you'd go say, man, how many of us carry an extra UTV? So,
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
I thought it was going
we
that
had
way,
quite
too.
a few of them. We had 3 UTVs in camp this past year. So, it was perfect.
Now, one thing I do want to bring up that was mentioned, we talked about the release and having a backup,
Extra
release with you. But the other one, though, that RC, like I told you, RC called me earlier today because he listened to the last podcast, and man, he was just like going, well, do this, and Luis, with his Viralaques, we were talking all about that, man. He was just so excited about everything. But he said that one of the failure points is people's dependence on their rangefinder in a couple of ways, right?
Agreed.
And in one way is that sometimes it happens so fast that you might not have a chance. And we've talked about this before. You don't have a chance to range, and that
It happened to me last year.
and that dependence ends up crippling you, and that becomes a failure point. And not only that, some people will trust in it so much, it's like that doggone GPS that you're going across by Lake Erie and it tells you to take a right and drive into the lake. And so you just turn and do it because the GPS just told you to do it, right? Some people will click off on that thing, man, and it's like, and the animal's out there 60 yards and it says 38. And so they shoot it for 38, right? So.
Yeah, I've been there.
Which
Chad told me 18 and he was 61. I'm like, what? 18? I'm like, come on, Chad, we got to do a better job than that, man. Clickety. Finally moves. There was a twig sticking up in front of him. He finally moves and he goes, 61. I'm like, done.
And then the story of which bin? All of them.
Yeah. A buddy of mine, Bruce Gaynor, he's hunting with Joe, and the bull walks in within 7 yards of him, and he goes, Joe, which pin? And Joe's like, all of them, man. It doesn't matter. He's within 7 yards, So, again, all these stress points that happen to you, for me, man, when I get in a set, the first thing I do is pull my rangefinder out and range some objects in my set, and I want to know where 40 yards is. That's where I want to know, because basically my 20 and 40 yard pin, man, up and down, they're about 6.5, 8 inches, somewhere in that neighborhood. I'm not going to be that far off. If I feel like he's closer to that, my 20-yard pin is always my gauge, right? But if I've had an opportunity to range him at 30, 35, well, then I'll know exactly. But, man, I gap shoot a lot of times because I know the range in my head.
Right.
I know what 40 yards looks like, Right. And, when he's out past – 50, 60, 70 yards, I've already ranged that.
Yeah. But it's always good
this year. He's caught with the rangefinder in his hand, and the bull is coming straight at him, and he can't draw, he can't move or anything. And bull's 31 yards from him.
Yeah.
I mean, he's from 31 yards, and Brendan's like this.
But if you do have the chance to confirm your distance, do it, because
no doubt.
It's
crucial.
It's definitely important to really understand that distance before taking a shot.
And I tell every one of you, I don't care if you shoot pins, if you own the best rangefinder ever, know 30 yards and in.
Yeah.
Know it.
For me, it's 40. I need to know what 40 yard looks like all the time. And I train myself to do that, It takes a lot. You got to work at it. It's like Joe. Joe didn't get instinctive shooting down the first time he did it. It took a lot of string time to get that to happen. And that's the same thing with judging distance. You need and look, when you shoot through a corridor, everything's going to look further, right?
That's really important.
I was going to bring that up because sometimes distances are deceiving up in the mountains. And one of the things, and we've talked about this in some of the other podcasts, something that really helps with building that confidence in judging distances is 3D shooting.
Yeah.
3D shooting.
And trying to be challenging yourself while in the woods, just trying to be all the time ranging and making calculation and then ranging and to see how far you are and just challenge yourself. That's what
you can do a cardboard cutout of the distance on the back of the general distance on the back of a bull to his belly, and then put that at a distance, get your pins up there and find out. Now, it's not going to work for everybody, but find out which of those gaps at that distance on your pins fit that cardboard. So that tells you how far away it is.
Oh, yeah.
Good idea.
It's its own built-in.
I follow you now.
Yeah.
Its own built-in rangefinder. They've done that for years with pins.
Mm-hmm. And it's
how
similar.
I gap. It's how I gap shooting past 60, 70 yards.
Similar to the concept of your V sight.
It isn't the other direction.
It's similar the other direction.
He's using the side to side.
Right.
And whereas, now you could put that thing out there 50 yards and find out which of those gaps would fit that, so that you would be able to tell how far an animal is without a rangefinder.
It's cool, man. That's a good idea. I never thought of that.
Even talking about that, Joe, there's a failure point that happened to me deer hunting up in the mountains, shooting straight down the mountain, right? And understanding I can use my 20-yard pin out to 40 yards if I'm shooting straight down all day long, and I didn't know that. I slapped a deer across the top of his back, and, it drew blood, but it just went straight up underneath his backbone. Another inch higher, and I'd have spined him, and we'd be celebrating, right? But it went right under him, and, it's like it never touched him, but I was shooting at him at 36 yards, and I put my 30-yard, I gapped my 30 and 40-yard pin, and man, I blew right over the top of him and, shot right through the top of his back. And if I went back to camp just going, I don't ever miss at these distances. What's up with that? So at camp, I went up the hill, put my target down there. I could have shot to 40 yards with my 20-yard pin and been dead on, right? Yeah. And so it's the same thing. Same with shooting uphill. practice that stuff, guys.
Absolutely.
Don't let that be a failure point because you didn't work at it.
So I was going to say something with like whenever I'm whitetail hunting, I've always got a target with me, and most of the time we're hunting out of the truck, right?
Yeah.
But a lot of times whenever I'm backpack hunting, sometimes you might go days and days without shooting your bow because you don't have a target or anything like that out there. So you guys need to carry, like I like to carry a judo point all the time. And me and Kyle after lunch, we'll be like, how far is that? How far is that stump over there?
Yeah.
And then we'll take a shot at it, just guessing, because it's most time it's up against a hill. You're not going to lose your arrow.
Yeah.
And you can really judge that distance out there in the woods. So we make sure that we shoot our bows every day at something at some point just to stay kind of tuned up and ready.
That's great. That's great advice, Cole.
I have been saying all this time that I think the most important arrow on your bow is a judo point for that exact
100%.
reason, man.
Yeah.
You know, because you hear everybody's always talking about, I get behind the string every day, man. I shoot so many arrows every day. And then you go out on a hunt and you're not behind that string. You don't shoot your bow, like you said, for days sometimes. And I got news for you, man. I'm shooting.
We shoot a lot in camp.
Yeah.
We shoot a lot in camp, you know.
Absolutely.
And I don't shoot a ton, but I stay up under it all the time.
Manano, man, what is one of your top failure points that you think for elk hunters?
Well, I got a bunch.
I just want one.
This is a great topic, Joe. I think one of the biggest was the shot placement, which you already talked about it. But I had another situation with my peep sight. One time I was shooting a big deer in a public land, and as I draw my bow, I realized my peep was turned. And I was trying, because I got a big nose, right? I was trying to turn it.
Oh, there's nothing wrong with that, bro.
I was trying to turn it, and I couldn't. I had to pass that big old deer. And then every time I learned the lesson, and every time that I'm gonna shoot something, I make sure that my peep it's right on the point, right? And then the last hunt we got in our place up in the mountain, I had a situation with my arrow came out the D loop, and I don't know how I managed to hold that draw, and then how can I say that? Release my draw.
Yeah.
I let down, and then I knocked my arrow again without making so many movements. It was like 25 yards away. It was like 30 yards away. But I drew back, and I was lucky, and then the bulls got stopped. Start looking, smelling, and then Joe cow called, and the bull came just like walking, and I let it fly. But that was another big failure situation I had.
Now, let me ask you something, man.
A lot of times that happens too. If you draw that bow one time and then let it back down, the next time you go to draw it, that knock will pop off. There's a lot of times when we draw that bow back that it pinches behind that bowstring. So when you draw your bow back, let's just say you crack one open and you think you got a shot and you crack it open. When you let it back down, make sure you reseat that knock on the string.
That's really important.
It can ease that knock forward just enough for the next time you pop it back, it'll pop off that string and do just what happened to Manano.
There's a way to compensate for that, Beto. And so there's a couple of knots that you can do around the knock before you put your D loop on that avoids the pinching taking place. And one of the ways to check is actually to just put the knock on the string, and when you draw,
right,
and then that you'll see that the position of that knock when it's actually being pinched, you'll see it sticking up like that. So when you get it right, when you draw, that knock is just sitting straight.
Sure.
So there are ways to accommodate for that. And yes, that is an issue, like you mentioned.
What I'm talking about, though, is it's the violent part of you letting it down. That springs that knock forward, and it's not seated fully against that string again. So the next time you draw it, it'll push the knock forward and pop it off. Not the whole knock. It'll just pop it off the string just barely. And it happened to Chav, and it blew his whole bow up. You know, his wasn't seated up against that string.
But what? So combined to with what you're saying is that if that knock is not pinched, when you let down, it's not being held by the string and the force going up. So it minimizes that being an issue.
Yes.
So let me ask you this, Manano, had any of those things that occurred, you know, your peep turning and that knock coming off like that, had any of that ever happened to you in practice?
No, I don't think so. Because when you're practicing, you're relaxed and calm. There's no virulaques.
Well, I don't think, but
involved.
how could virulaques turn your peep sight? See, I don't get that.
Now, most of the time that happens because you put your bow in a torqued position where
the thing is,
the peep sight turns.
The thing is, I always try to have a routine when I'm hunting. I got that from golf. I used to play golf, and when you're playing golf, you must have a routine before making your shot. So I always try to do a routine when I'm hunting. But when you got nerve or virulaques involved, I mean, it happens so quick. Yeah. So you just miss. You probably miss just part of your routine, and then you don't check your peep sight, or you don't check if they are really well knocked. So when you're practicing, when I practice, I try to follow my paths, to follow my routine all the time. But the thing is, if you let the virulaques go, I mean, inside you and make changes of your pattern, of your routine, that's gonna happen. So after this situation, I try to put myself in under the situation that I must follow my routine. That's why I'm trying to be cold blood when I'm taking a shot. Right. And one of the most important parts to me is just to make an ethical shot. So I don't let the virulaques go in my head. I always got virulaques after the shot.
Right.
But I'm trying to judge pretty well the distance. So the worst thing is making a marginal shot.
Right.
That's gonna kill me.
Yeah.
So that I think that happened pretty fast in those two situations, and I missed part of my routine. That's why it happened. But I got a bunch of failure points as going on with Luis and another, you know.
Look, I echo his same sentiment. It happened to me this year, Joe. You know, it forced me to shoot at camp without my peep sight. So see where my bow shoots without now I know my bow shoots about 6 inches to the left without my peep sight. So I'm fine, you know. I know exactly what happens if that happens to me. I know exactly what I need to do. But I incorporated something in my routine, like Manano's talking about, and I've never had this happen. What happened to me is my bowstring got worn. Okay, and what happens is when it gets worn, it'll get another wrap in it, and it'll actually turn that peep on you. Right now, my bowstring's almost brand new, so I mean it comes back every time, and you don't have to worry about it. It doesn't matter. I still turn my bowstring, make sure it's where it needs to be when I drag it back. And, you know, that way that doesn't happen to me. Now, if it happens in the heat of battle, I know exactly what I need to do to fix that. But it wasn't because it wasn't until after I had that bull standing broadside at 35 yards and draw it back and it's solid black in my eye. I'm like, what in the world is going on here? You know, I'd have killed that bull stone dead if I could have seen through that.
And I think the key to avoiding things like this is find ways. I mean, you got to really get creative to find ways to put yourselves in positions or situations or scenarios that are out of your rock star backyard shooting form
Sure,
stuff.
man.
I mean, whether it's timed competition where you guys are running to a spot and you have to, and pressure's on, or you're doing a sprint coming back and you got to shoot within 5 seconds because that's all you have in that window, and this might not be absolutely not optimum what you want, but don't prepare for optimum, man, because that's not hunting. That's definitely not elk hunting, man. Because
Yeah, when I killed that bull right behind me, when Joe had me run down, thank God we had to run down the mountain. I have to run up. So we ran a long way. I mean, it was a daggum long way to get there to where we needed to be. And then by the time I get there, boy, I guarantee you, puffing and puffing,
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I had to, get it together and take a deep breath and let it out a little at a time and make a shot. I mean, but we work on that stuff,
Yeah.
We work
Yeah,
on
that's it. So Cole, man, last time you kind of agreed with Gilbert on the whole shot selection thing, and so that was like at the top of your list right there as well, and I think that's a huge one, guys, that I'm glad, and I think that is definitely in the top 10, poor shot selection, right? But
Yeah.
Cole, I want to hear what's next on your list.
So in the beginning, I think one of my big failure points was once I got a bull engaged, or once I got a response, then I wasn't calling enough. I think I was at the time, I was afraid that I was going to scare that bull away. And I think that was a big failure point for me. That's what I had wrote down.
So you're saying that all right, I want to wrap my head around that. So you were saying that you weren't calling enough back at that time?
So I didn't know what I was saying.
Okay.
I had the gist of I knew what a bugle was,
Right.
but I didn't have any clue that by adding voice to it or anything like that would change, what was being said right at the time. Same thing with like doing cow calls. I was kind of uneducated, I guess, and I was afraid of scaring that bull away. So I would just close the distance, or try to close the distance of where I thought he was again, and I would never call again. So I think that I wasn't educated in my calling, and I wasn't calling enough so that I could keep him engaged, if that makes sense.
You were missing the painting a picture portion.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Like, what was he saying to me, right?
For sure. I had no clue.
What's he trying to tell me? I think that is 100% right after shot placement. I mean, it's number one on my list, but right after shot, it's definitely understanding how to speak the language, Joe. It's a failure point if you don't know what the bulls are saying, right? Or what the cows are saying. The language of elk is something that you got to dive into. And if you go, I ain't trying to pimp our base camp, but if you go to base camp, you're going to hear about how to speak the language. Joe and our ElkBros crew here, we're going to throw out a whole bunch of calling scenarios and everything else, and you can actually start learning how to speak the language. And there's lots of other information out there for you guys to make that happen. But it's so important for y'all to understand that you got to know what the bulls are telling you when they're talking back.
Look, if somebody was to ask me, what are the things that has made me successful all these years, I've got to put that the ability to create an opportunity with being able to understand and speak the language. I speak the language, bro. I mean, it's
Chavez.
And mix that with the haircut that you got right now.
The Don one.
like I said, bro, man, just because I don't have that 7th grade fade, don't be picking on me now, man.
Hey, man, Joe's already established he'd rather be a lover than a fighter.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely.
That's right.
And, and I do. I think that ability talk, to speak the language is game changing, man. I mean, you know,
It's the number one most important thing in the world.
well, yeah, because
When we hunt like we do, okay, when you hunt the rut, and you hunt that power portion of your first of September till the 24th of September, you got to understand what they're talking about.
well,
right?
Chav and I used to go out in August 1st. We used to go out on July 25th, and we would bring cows to us with cow talk.
Sure.
So, you know, there's other, and you can use that language all different times of year. Now, is that the strategy I want for rifle hunting a bull? No, it's not what I want.
Right.
But you can learn to speak that language. And you know what Luis was saying, like when he said to Cole there though, was he said that, you know, you didn't, you know, you weren't
missing the painting a picture portion.
Yeah, painting a picture. That is a whole different level, because I think that people, number one, when they understand why they're calling, what type of animal they're dealing with, what that animal's mood is, and why they are talking or doing what they're doing, I think that's huge in step one, because until you understand that and you have a little bit more to do, like, okay, so look, y'all, I hear people all the time, like when they start calling, they get out in the woods and they got a real decent location bugle. And if you have a good location bugle, understand this, that means that you can do a scream. That means that you can do a roundup. That means that you can do a lazy advertising bugle, because it's just length, volume, and inflection, right? That's all it is. But what a lot of those people would do when they get out there is they wouldn't understand the language, and they wouldn't know how to respond. And so they end up doing something that
repetitive.
Freaks the bull out.
They're limited. But here's what the one that really gets me is when those people have a decent location bugle, and then all of a sudden they add this horrible chuckle to it, you know, and it's because they see.
It happens.
Well, you don't even have to chuckle.
That makes me wonder too, Joe.
You don't even have to chuckle, man.
No, you don't.
That makes me wonder too. I don't understand how people can have such a terrible chuckles. I really don't.
Especially when the bulls are chuckling right back at you.
You know, look, and all I'm saying is you know, work within your strengths. And if you have the ability, like I said, if you have the ability to do a location bugle, you really have a variety of bull sounds that you can make. Add to that the easy stuff, just
some panning, and,
you know, just
and wrecking a tree.
Yeah, that is, oh my gosh, man.
Huge.
You know, it is so huge. So what Cole is saying is man, that Cole understood that, okay, a bull bugles, I scream at him, or I can cow call at him. So he basically had a very limited
language,
alien understanding of their language, right? And so he was very limited in that. So you're absolutely right, Cole. I think people not having that ability are so limited, or, you know, that's like what we talked about last time, when you've been locating. You finally get an answer. This bull that just, and what do?
Freaked him out.
Yeah, it just freaked him
He's
out.
like, man, dude, Mike Tyson's over there trying to get after my ass.
But
I don't want no part of that.
Let me add to another part to that, though. Another huge failure point, along with what Cole's talking about, is people that go ridge mile after mile after mile after mile, putting out location bugles and cow calls, and they don't hear a response, so they think there's no elk. Right?
Oh yeah.
And that's a huge failure point.
Definitely. You gotta give them time, man.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And a response is not always a bugle. They can be coming into you without that. So, you know, that's kind of huge for everybody.
Yeah, you know, this year, Joe, when we bailed off and I killed my bull, there were multiple bulls firing up all around us and everything. But that bull that I killed, he actually was coming, and you could hear him glunking, and then you could hear him just kind of groaning, and that's how I heard him coming. I was like, oh my gosh, he's not bugling. He hasn't said a word, but I see his feet walking and I hear him. I mean, he's just all worked up, and then when he comes walking up through there, I range him where I think he's going to come through. And it was all over with, but he never bugled, and I wouldn't have really I done stepped over one bull to go down there to try to figure out where they all were. And there were just multiples all around us, So when he starts coming, he kind of shuts up and he's wanting to see the big bull that Joe's acting like up above us and the big herd of cows that's with us, So it was so cool to watch that unfold. And what was crazy, we had to pull off another big herd of elk to go to these other ones because the wind was jacking us around.
And look here. All right. You brought up something that I hadn't even thought about. That's another failure point, is people that will end up locked up in a losing situation instead of going
for sure.
So, and we're coming down this ridge, and this bull and his cows come up over the top of the ridge. They've already winded us. Some of them are already nervous, but they're still hanging in the area. And a lot of people would be tempted to go after with a bad wind in that bad situation, and you end up freezing. And I don't mean freezing cold. I mean staying there locked down, thinking that you're going to actually get a shot or an opportunity, or you continue calling to them, or you keep working it, and the clock is ticking instead of going, this is a lost cause, move to the next one. And we actually, there was a point where I was like, let's go, we're out of here. Right.
Yeah. We had to pull Manano and Brendan out of there.
Right. Yeah. Because they could still see them. And so many people get lost in that pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, man. They see the animal. The animals already know what's going on, and they continue trying to work a losing situation. So that is also a failure point, man. Know when to cut your losses and to move on. And if anything, by moving off that animal and not really boogering them, you might get another day.
Like an opportunity, yeah.
Yes, on that.
Absolutely. Yeah, Colin and I have done that many times, to where, especially when the wind starts changing in the evening times and we're right on that same level, and I'm like, man, I need like another 30 minutes to get this dude, because he's just reluctant or whatever it is. Mm-hmm. And at some point you just got to be like, yeah, we're either going to blow these elk out of here, or we can come back and hope they're here tomorrow. And I always try to go back for tomorrow rather than blow anything out.
Yeah, unless it was your last day or something last
effort, Yeah, for sure.
There's times where, man, you got to go for the Hail Mary. I mean, you're running out of time or something like that, but you just got to, it's the same thing, when you're tracking an animal and you need to back out, but you have a rainstorm coming, getting ready to pound. Sometimes you gotta have other things happen just because of the situation, right? Luis, let's go to your next one, bud.
Yeah. So similar to what Beto mentioned with regards to shooting downhill or uphill, that, you should realize that it's not the straight line distance from your bow to the animal, but, from the base, even ground, that's the actual distance that you should shoot. One of the things that I learned early enough when we were hunting public land, and I remember Manano and I actually called Beto back in the day. I was shooting from a tree stand, and when I was shooting down from the tree stand, I was not bending at the waist. Mm-hmm. So my anchoring point was changing with me not realizing. And it's interesting because you can line up your peep, no problem, on that site and still shoot, and you're going to shoot high if you don't have your anchor points correct. So that was like a big aha moment to me. And one of the things I found very useful to remind me, especially when I'm hunting on a tree stand, is that nose button that I got and I put on the string actually gives me that additional anchoring point. So it forces me to bend at the waist by keeping that contact there and keeping my anchor point behind my jaw. So now with the jaw and the tip of the nose on that nose button, it just forces me to not change my anchor point when shooting up or down. So That together with understanding the trajectory of the arrow, especially with longer shots, because we see through that sight and we think that arrow is going to fly, right on the same path of that pin.
Yeah.
And not the case, right? I mean, especially when we're shooting further distances, that arrow is going to go way up and then it's going to come way down. And so it can help, it goes both ways. It can really hurt you or it can really help you, so if you understand really the up and down trajectory of that arrow, then you know before you take a shot of, hey, am I going to hit something above when I take this shot? Or is there an obstacle in the middle between me and the animal that, knowing the trajectory of that arrow, is I'm going to miss that obstacle and hit that animal where I want it to, even though my spot on the animal may seem covered by that obstacle in the middle. So really knowing that your bow and the trajectory of that arrow helps a lot and just makes you a bit more wise when choosing a shot.
Grinders tuning in, thank you for listening to the Blue Collar Elk Hunting Podcast. Our goal is to share our knowledge and help you flatten that learning curve so that you too can have some of the very same incredible experiences that have given all of us here at ElkBros a lifetime of memories. If you like what you hear or see, you can get all of this information plus so much more from our Base Camp Elk Hunting Training Camp, the first in a series of online courses from our Blue Collar Elk Academy. Our Base Camp Training Camp allows me to use my coaching style and share almost 40 years of elk hunting experiences successfully hunting elk on public lands, as well as over 20 years guiding hunters of all ages and experience levels. This course will be like nothing you have ever experienced in concept and structure, using success-based coaching techniques that will elevate your confidence and skill sets. Our camp will prepare you specifically from that final moment most in your control, those final minutes or seconds the elk is in front of you, backwards through each step and level, allowing you to see, visualize, understand, and relate every coaching point to what lies ahead, the next step, the next thought process, the next success. Because y'all, you've already been there. You know what it looks like. By tapping my 30 years of teaching and coaching experience, our camps are developed considering multiple learning modes with text, visuals, audio, as well as video. And Base Camp will benefit those new to elk hunting all the way to the 10 to 15 year vet. So if you are looking for that one thing to help you fill that tag this year, invest in the most important piece of equipment there is, you and your elk hunting knowledge. You can find the Blue Collar Elk Hunting Academy and the Base Camp Training Camp at ElkBros.com. That's ElkBros.com. Keep dreaming of the screaming, believing in achieving, and most of all, keep grinding. If you're shooting multiple pins, and not a single pin, your pins already tell you that too. I mean,
Yes.
If you're shooting an animal at 50 yards and you have a limb
20-yard pin is going to be your upper echelon of.
If you have a limb at 30 yards and your 30-yard pin is hitting that limb, well, guess what?
You're going to hit it.
Yeah. So
You're going to hit it.
you can actually check that.
Yeah, Luis, do you think that your lighted knocks kind of help you see that trajectory a lot easier?
Yeah, when you're practicing, yes. When you take that shot, yes, you see the trajectory, but I mean, when you're taking a shot on an animal, that's it. I mean, you definitely. To me, the lighted knock helps me kind of remember when I rewind the movie in my head of when the shot took place, where exactly did that arrow hit? Where did it hit the animal? Was it high? Was it low? And if you have video on it, it helps a lot because it just that knock really shows on the video of where the animal hit, and it helps you make a decision then on, how long should you wait before you even go and recover the arrow, or after you recover the arrow and gather more information, how long should you wait then? Yeah. So I find a lot of benefit on the lighted knocks in general.
Yeah. And I hope people understood what I was talking about, though, is that, if you're shooting at 40, your 20 and 30 yard pins are showing you the trajectory of your arrow. Where they are height is how that arrow is going to go at those distances. So that's something for you to look at as well when you do that. Gilbert, what's your next one, bud?
Yeah. So next one is my equipment. Okay. So, the first one on equipment for me is boots. Right. I had a failure point. I had a pair of boots that were probably 4 or 5 years old, but they'd been in my garage through some searing heat here in Texas, and I'm sure it weakened the state of the soles on the boot. And listen, these are high dollar boots. They're a very well known brand name that I'm not going to mention, and I'm telling you right now. We took off after a bull. It was me, Manano, and Brendan.
And who was there to help you?
No doubt. Manano was there to try and help me out. We took off, and we got a bull sounding off maybe 250, 300 yards from us. And we take off in a general vicinity, and I was going so fast, I walked the sole off my right boot. And that is not something you want to have happen to you, fellas, is when your sole comes off of your boot. Now, I will say that my brother Manano was ready with some paracord, and we lashed that sole to that boot, and it wasn't another 150 yards. The left sole comes off of the pair of boots, okay?
At least you're having some consistency, Beto.
Yeah. So I am dead in the water with a great pair of boots that have no sole on them, and I'm like, what do you do here? I blessed the boys, told them go take care of their business. And I went back to camp, got me another pair of boots, and I was going to hunt by myself solo the rest of that morning. And it sucked. I'm going to tell you straight up, it sucked because my buddy Brendan got a shot on a bull. I wasn't there to film it or be there. Obviously I bring multiple pairs of boots to camp with me. Y'all have heard me talk about it. That morning I just decided that because my other ones I've been wearing them, I was going to wear this other pair of boots. I have probably 3 or 4 pair of boots.
That's a real tough thing though, man, well,
you need to inspect your equipment.
Yeah.
You need to inspect your equipment. If it's older, you probably ought to go inspect it, man.
So I guess
wear your boots before you go out. And I had not worn those boots on any of my hiking or any of that stuff, Joe. So I think it's just a good idea for you. If you're going to take it with you, you better go wear it a little bit, see how it's fitting. Boots are my feet are the most important thing to me in the elk woods. That and my pillow. Don't forget your pillow on a hunt, okay? That's another failure point that I would say. But don't forget your pillow. But my feet are the most important thing for me. But a really good pair of socks. And, yeah, I spend a lot of money on socks. And I have a very good pair of boots, I think all of you guys would agree, man, we got to treat our feet really well because that's what's carrying us most of the time. You want a pair that can shed water. You want a pair that – but dry. Keep your feet dry.
Yeah, and I'm like, again, I'm always the outlander on that because I hunt forever. And
yeah, you hunt with tennis shoes, but I've seen you hunting boots too, Joe.
Yeah. When we get mud and bad things like that, but I'm talking early days when we really couldn't afford those things, man. We hunted in shoes and got wet feet, and it's not comfortable. But I think your point that I want to go back to though is that. Really, it could happen with anything. That could happen with your rain gear laminated. There's all kinds of things. So I think the key is inspecting equipment, using equipment.
That's right.
Using it in the same situations that you're going to be hunting in prior to. Know how it's going to react. If you're going to wear a glove while you're
oh my God, yes.
While you're shooting a release, you had better know how that's going to feel and work.
If you've never shot with a glove on with your release, you need to. Yeah, it cost Tucker a giant bull.
Absolutely, man.
He never hunted with a glove on.
Not just all that, but like for some of those backpack hunters out there, I tell my guys all the time, y'all, don't pack your backpack right before you get in the truck and that be the first time that you've touched all your equipment. Yeah. If you're going out there and you're planning to stay in that thing for 7 days, you had better already have slept a few nights in it. You had better have pulled it out, make sure you know how to set it up, all that stuff. It's not just for your boots or anything like that. Like you're dependent on living in that stuff. So make sure you go through it and you're familiar with everything that you have to keep you in the hunt the whole time you plan to hunt and not at the truck or in town.
And I'll take that a step further, man, because I know a lot of these people that they'll go up and do a backpack hunt and they'll go out and buy some, I'm not going to give names of different brands of dried foods, but they'll go buy it to eat on that hunt for the first time and find out that their system doesn't agree with it. And they're miserable.
Yeah.
I know those guys.
Yeah. It takes a while for your stomach to adapt. Yeah.
You might want to go and meet with Luis and Manano before you come to elk camp, son. Because I'm telling you, what they put in your system, whew.
Talk about shooting ourselves in the foot, though. I mean, Manano and I suffered from really that exact failure point happening to Joe.
Right. Joe's like,
I mean, I'm talking Manano and I were probably 20 to 30 feet behind Joe, and we were gagging.
Oh my God.
Felt like vomiting.
And I catch the blame for that. These guys, man,
my fault. Y'all give me the food, and it's my fault, man.
So number one, learn to lead and not to follow.
Yeah, man. Don't go in circles, boys.
Yeah.
Don't have that problem, man.
Look, I think another thing I want to mention with equipment, man, is what you put on the end of your arrow. You guys stay with cut on contact stuff. Now, I don't care if it's 2-blade, 3-blade, 4-blade. Stay on a cut on contact that flies great in your system. Stay away from the mechanical.
If I may, just take it a step further, and think of structural integrity.
No.
Your arrow shouldn't be wobbling, moving, anything. It's got to be a solid piece of equipment, no moving parts. Yeah. Structural integrity.
Cole said last time, man, when you think about it, the most important part of your arrow that's going to determine what happens to that animal going down is going to be that broadhead. So, and again, I mean, I've been victim to all that stuff. I've been through buying the satellites because they were the most inexpensive broadheads on there. But, so
look, Indians killed buffalo for years with flint on the end of the
You can have the best broadhead, but if your arrow doesn't have a good structural integrity, the moment it hits, it's going to part bend. And if it's not flying properly, that broadhead is not going to penetrate. So, again,
I'm just talking about a cut on contact versus mechanical. The mechanical absorbs a lot of energy. So I'm not saying that people that shoot a big, huge adult arrow that's real heavy should not worry about mechanical energy. What I'm saying is
mechanical has no structural integrity. I'm with you. So we're talking the same thing.
Same thing. That's exactly right. Yeah. So I just want guys, and there are people out there that kill bulls with them, man. Good on you. Good luck to you, because I've been a privy to. Yeah, I've been a privy to one of my best buds that's sitting right here with us, the ninja Leroy Chavez. Got a giant bull walking in on us. He clips a little limb and it opens that broadhead up prematurely, and we're a 12-hour tracking job later and 1.8 miles forever getting back to the dadgum bike through some of the worst deadfalls you've ever seen in your natural born day. And I mean, instead we should have been drinking, having an adult beverage and toasting a dead bull there in front of us, man. And calling for us a dadgum plane ride back or something, man. I mean, seriously, that's what I'm talking about.
I'm going to give the last one for this evening on this. We'll pick this up again when we get back after June. And we've got a couple of mailbox questions here. So I'm going to give what I think is one of my top, and you heard me talk about the language, and I'll tell you, there's a few things that I think, again, have helped me be successful. One was speaking the language. The other one was
Manano's perfume. Okay, my bad. I'm sorry.
I started doing this before I ever had to smell Manano. So, in fact, you guys, anyway, never mind. I'll get off task here, but I think it is the ability to hunt fearlessly. And
Oh yeah, Joe. I know where you're going.
you
Yep.
know, I think so many people, their biggest failure point is that they want to avoid being out in the dark or in areas they've never been, or they never want to dive off a trail, or they want to stay close to a road, or they want to stay close to camp, or they got to be with two other people because they have an innate fear of being lost or not getting back, or the monsters under the bed, or the things that go bump in the night. And
wow, that's a great an amazing point. We had a conversation, my father and I today, and we were talking about that particular point. When we hunt in Venezuela, we got a big jungles, like tropical jungles, right?
Mhm.
With jaguars and stuff. So
With
one of the
with what?
jaguars.
Oh, jaguars. I thought you said showers. Yeah. I'm sorry. Go
No,
ahead.
jaguars.
Yeah.
So one of the biggest fear every single Venezuelan hunter had before was to get lost. So and after
And your
GPS
Jaguar
arrived,
food.
Mhm.
yeah, and after the
Shower food.
GPS arrived, that fear disappeared. And it sounds crazy because we had a conversation today about it. And I was explaining my father about the apps, like Onyx or Base Map
Base Map,
or
right.
and every single app that is out there right now. It's a game changer because you will be able to.
Such a game changer.
Yes.
It's I mean.
Hold on, I had everybody freeze up on me here for some reason, man.
Him, dude. I thought you maybe.
Yeah. I thought you were having.
Eyes were all closed and everything, Joe.
I thought you were having
He's mad at us.
Yeah,
or
no,
something.
I
got
thought he
his
had
eyes all closed.
So
Did you call it a stroke? A brain stroke? I thought you had a brain stroke. You were like,
I was like the only one. I thought I hit this dimensional thing. I was the only one who else was frozen, man. So I had to stay on my side. But going back to that, Manano. Okay. He was staring. I thought he was still frozen. but start with that again. The conversation that you had with your dad about GPSs.
Yeah. I mean, we have a conversation today about the electronics, the GPS and the apps we have out there right now, available for every single one in the woods. So one of the biggest fear as a Venezuelan hunter and everyone in Venezuela was to get lost on those huge tropical jungles.
Right.
Got some bad jaguars and unbelievable snakes.
Yes.
Yes.
I mean, it's a nasty. It's a beautiful though, but it's a nasty situation to get lost in those jungles.
Yeah.
So and that's like music to my ears because we had a long discussion. I had like 2 weeks without talking to my father because I was too busy, and we have a beautiful conversation today about the GPS and the apps. And that was that's a game changer for every single one. Now you can hunt fearlessly. You can go wherever you want without looking even before the GPS or whatever. After you go across the mountain or a flat land, after you finish your deal, you can start looking where you at.
Yeah, and you don't even
then
need
you can go back. Yeah. So it's a game changer. And this is like 5. I mean, when I came here and started hunting, I used Google Earth to do e-scouting a lot.
Right.
That's what I found, so many public land stuff. And I e-scout, I don't know, per hours, just picking good spots and stuff. And I remember I used to refresh the Google Earth. I used to climb a tree and trying to get signal and trying to refresh.
now you have downloadable maps, man. I mean,
Yeah.
you can have them on your phone. You do not have to have data. You do not have to have Wi-Fi. There are still people today that are so limiting themselves because they won't spend $30 for an app that will allow them. Look, I hunt on one of the premier ranches in New Mexico. And when I went to go hunt that, to guide there, everybody else had so much more knowledge level of that place than I did. Yet I was able to go in and be effective from day one because I had base map on my, I had it on my phone and I had it on a tablet that I could put on my truck, and I could go into an area and I could see in the dark where certain meadows were, where certain hillsides were that I wanted to be at before it got daylight. And I could be there. Now you have to do your homework, and you got to be careful because there's things called cliffs or vertical walls sometimes. But you know, that's just being smart, and always have backup charging battery. And have a compass with you, because you can always get direction on your compass.
Absolutely.
You know, and just go with that instead of having to use
Your phone sometimes loses its north.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's imperative that you do those things. And woodsmanship, man, learn to look around, to look
Shadows.
behind you. You know,
Yeah, learn what side the moss grows on the tree.
absolutely.
That's a
Learn
good
how-
point, Gilbert.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, Luis would
Shadows, watch the
never learn how to do that. I tried to explain him several times, but nah, I mean,
And
Yeah, well, I mean,
Same thing.
general rule, guys. If you can watch sunrise, you know where it's going. So at
The shadows on your trees.
too. Yeah, your shadows on the trees.
Yep,
you
absolutely.
can kind of tell which. I mean, I'm not trying to be a Boy Scout here or anything like that, but man, moss grows on the the sides of the trees. Know what your area, what side the moss grows on the side of the trees, and you know what direction that's going to lead you in. Know where your shadows are. Know where your sunlight normally comes from and where it ends up in the areas that you're hunting. It can help you so much if you get turned around or you drop your daggum phone and it crashes on a rock. I mean, who knows what could happen to you? You got to be prepared for that. But like Joe said, man, I carry a Poseidon with me in my bag. It's a big battery package, charge my phone like 10 times, so I'm not going to lose juice where I can't get it to work, but I carry a handheld GPS in my bag too. You could, like I said, have something go wrong with your phone and it's not working. So there are just lots of tools out there for us.
It totally changes the game, man, because the ability to be out later or be out before daylight.
And add a satellite communicator that is effective, then that chips away from that fear as well.
Yeah.
Absolutely, man. So
game changer.
I would really say that is a huge failure point, because there's
I
a
got
lot
my
of people-
Zoleo 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
Same.
They're on sale right now, right? Right now, I think you can get those boogers. They're usually $200. You can get them for like,
$149.
yeah. And you got one too, Cole, right?
Yeah, I sure did. But what Joe's talking about there is not everybody has that comfort zone, right? I talk about this all the time whenever I'm whitetail hunting, is guys have a comfort zone that they start to feel when they get a certain distance away from the truck. They don't like to push past that because they're afraid of that boogeyman or the darkness or whatever it might be. Like what he's saying is don't get caught back at the truck 2 hours before dark, and then you hear a bugle where you just hiked from, because it's gonna happen if you do that.
Yeah.
I don't know how many times that I've seen guys turning around and going back, and I'm like, y'all, there's a bull bugling right there. Oh man, well, it's fixing to get dark.
Yeah.
I don't give two craps.
Me either, man. I got a good light.
Yeah,
Even if I don't,
we're going.
Yeah.
So
Now, you talked about equipment redundancy. have it. If you're gonna have it in anything, have it in your headlamps and your flashlights, man. Because
Absolutely.
we live in the dark. I mean, it is the best time to hear bugling animals. Why are you going to leave some of the best hunting areas when it's prime time just to ensure you're back to the vehicle so that you can get back to camp, so that you can, have that dinner? And it's the wrong focus, man.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
How long were those bulls bugling while we were butchering my elk when Joe and them went to go?
I don't know.
How long?
Late. I don't know. 8:39.
9 o'clock at night, they still rolling off. And while we're butchering, he and I war slap out, and we're waiting on Joe to come with the cavalry. And I mean, we're war slap out, leaning up against the old carcass of a bull elk, and dadgum bulls are sounding off all around us. It was cool, man. And it was so black cold, you couldn't see your hand in front of you. That's how dark it was.
Yeah.
I'm gonna get sentimental here, but it was a beautiful night. It was a beautiful night, the sky and stuff, and we got adult beverage there, and
yes,
we had a
We don't need to know anymore. I think that's enough. I think that's enough.
Man.
Yeah.
I don't want to get sentimental, but it's starting to get romantic here, man.
It was a romantic evening. I'm telling you straight.
It was
we had
an
the serenading going on. We had a good meal.
Going south real quick.
It was an amazing experience, Beto.
So let's head down. Go ahead. What are you going to say, Manano?
Please don't cut me off, Joe. Shit, man. Oh my goodness. It was a beautiful experience with my brother Beto.
Oh, absolutely.
But you had already said that, man. Nobody cut you off when you said it.
Oh, I mean,
well, he cut my inspiration.
Yeah.
Hey, man.
Like I said, guys, we wouldn't be that comfortable though. I mean, if we didn't have everything that we had. I mean, we knew where Joe was going. We could communicate because we had the Zolios, the whole 9 yards, and we did. We had a romantic evening together, handling our business on the old elk carcasses, and then we just got to kick back. I mean, it wasn't long because I'm telling you, it took us a while. That was a big old bull. It wasn't long. We were kicked back over there by the aspen trees where he died by, and we're listening to all these bulls just go absolutely berserk.
And you're totally relaxed. See, that's the difference, man.
It's so cool.
And that's the thing I want to tell people too, is when you're out in the woods and it is dark and you start to get this anticipation inside of you, slow down, relax, and listen to these words.
Yeah.
There's no difference between the daytime and the nighttime other than the color. That's it.
Exactly.
Oh, yeah.
That's it. And
there's nothing out there in the dark that couldn't get you in the day.
Absolutely.
I promise you. My grandpa told me that. My grandpa told me that a long time ago. Let me tell you something. Them bears are out during the day, son, and they all get a pass from me. So they spared me and Chad's life, so they get a pass from me.
So let's go to the ElkBros mailbox, man. We're going to knock this out, and we got 2 questions, and then we'll see each other in July, man, and we'll get cranking in July, man. So, Chav, take the first one.
Okay, Terrence Fuller from Ohio asks, what do you do if you are seeing plenty of elk sign in an area, but none of the elk are responding to calls?
Oh.
They are there.
They're there.
Yeah, they're definitely there.
Look for them.
Yeah, if those animals, man, if you are seeing plenty of sign, and if you're seeing sign, you're probably smelling sign, right? And it just depends on what's going on. There could be a lot of reasons that you're not hearing animals responding. But what I want to say is everybody, again, this goes back to what we were talking about. Everybody thinks a response from an elk has to be a verbal, and it doesn't. Elk will come into you silently, man. If you are in an area, and what I love to do, especially, man, is to work and sound like a group of cows or a small group of bulls if it's early season, and I'm working through an area, generally transition from feed to bed, where I like to move through, crosswind, and I'm calling and have those boogers come into me silent.
Yeah.
So
I was gonna comment too, Joe, that depending on what the area looks like, and depending on what time of the day you are in the area, because they may be going or transitioning, like you said, through that area at different time of the day, depending on is it a saddle, is it a transition area, what kind of area is it, and what time of the day are you in that area, and what time of the day you should be in that area.
oh, absolutely.
Yeah, keep moving too, man. Because sooner or later, if there's sign there, you're gonna run into them. Keep using your wind, and then understand. Make sure if you're doing a scenario and you're calling, you're giving yourself 30 to 45 minutes in these sets, because a lot of these
And that was
bulls
the
are
other thing I was
coming.
going to say, Gilbert, man.
I mean, silent.
If I'm up in a bedding area, up in there at all, and I'm smelling or seeing fresh sign, then I'm gonna put on a scenario. I'm gonna paint a picture. I'm gonna give it time. I have nothing to lose if it's that midday, man. Most people are back at camp, and let me tell you, the best time to get a bull to react to you is midday.
Oh yeah,
because
especially them satellite bulls.
Yeah, all of them, man.
Yeah.
All of them will. So if just because you are seeing plenty of elk sign and you're not hearing elk verbally responding, does not mean that they're not responding.
there. Yeah.
There's other ways that you can kill those boogers. So that's what I would tell you, man. Gilbert, you take Jim's.
He says, hang on just a sec here. Joey says, first of all,
Jim
thanks
Clancy.
Jim Clancy
Mr.
from
Jim
Atlanta.
Clancy from Atlanta, Georgia. He says, first of all, thanks for all you guys do. Love the show. But for my question, he says, I've never been at high altitude. And I hear people talk about altitude sickness. That's a real deal, Brother Jim. He says, how would I know if I have it? Oh, it ain't no mistake.
You will feel it.
What does it feel like, and how can I keep from getting it? That's a great question, Jim.
Aspirin, Advil, be there 2 days before the hunt, 3 days before the hunt.
He's got Big O's remedy right there, for sure. I suffer from asthma, so in most of it's exercise and weather induced, could be allergy induced too. For me, it's really about getting up there and getting my lungs used to that thin air. And I go through an aspirin regimen. A week before I go to the mountains, I take one bare aspirin a day, helps thin the blood down a little bit. And also, I get there a couple of days early. So it doesn't feel like that 900-pound gorilla sitting in the middle of your chest. Because, where we hunt up 10,000 feet, I mean, from 8,500 to 10,000, there's just absolutely no air up there. Somebody sucked it all up from us flatlanders.
So what does it feel like to have? I mean,
Yeah, I was gonna say you feel lightheaded.
Yeah. You're gonna get
lightheaded and get a headache like that. And some people, I've seen some people in very, very high altitude actually throw up.
Yeah,
they get so dizzy, they feel so bad, and they just start throwing up.
It's generally a real throbbing headache,
Yeah, major headache and some fatigue.
Yeah.
Make sure that you drink plenty of water. And
Shortness of
I would
breath.
say pace yourself. If you can't make it up to your spot days and days before, make sure you pace yourself your first couple days, because it will affect you, whether it's going to be minor or major.
Yeah.
You can kind of, by taking those precautions like Gilbert was talking about with the aspirin, but on top of that, pacing yourself and then drinking tons of water and making sure you're eating too.
Yeah. Got to have fuel. A Ferrari can only go so far if they don't have any gasoline. So got to put fuel in the
Are
buggy.
you a Ferrari, Beto?
Absolutely. No, I'm more like a Volkswagen, man. I'm dependable.
He goes
I'm
like
kind of slow, but I'm dependable.
slow. I got only 1 year, one speed,
and it's slow.
but I'm gonna get freaking there.
Exactly.
So Gilbert,
we'll get there.
So Gilbert, how did Carl Gamage tell you to prepare the first time?
Yeah, so Carl Gamage, y'all hear me talk about Carl Gamage, but Carl Gamage told me the first time that I was going to come elk hunting, I said, well, how should I prepare? He goes, he said, well, let me tell you right now. He said, just go in there. He said, you go to Walmart I said, yes, sir. He said, go in there and get you one of them Walmart sacks and tie it around your head and poke one hole in it for your mouth to be there and go run around the block 3 or 4 times with that Walmart bag tied over your head. And I thought, this guy's absolutely crazy, man. He goes, you ain't going to be prepared for it, so don't worry about it. He said, just show up. He said, but if you want to do something, pull the damn Walmart bag over your head and poke a hole in it. He said, now, be careful because you live down there in Texas. They might call the law on you. Now, Carl Gamage was from Texas, so he knew. Ask me how he knew. I don't know. But I know Carl Gamage was right. I guarantee you couldn't have. I have since tried that, and it does work. I'm going to tell you right now.
No, tell me you didn't try that, bro.
Absolutely, I've tried it because I wanted to try to mimic. I wanted to try to mimic that low oxygen deal.
Again, another disclaimer: don't do this at home, guys.
So what Carl Gamage said works, but I'm telling you, you just can't prepare for it from us being where we're from. It's the reason why we moved our Olympic training facility to Colorado Springs, because when we in the 60s, when they went down to Mexico City, they got hammered in that low altitude or high altitude. So they actually moved our athletes where they train at high altitude now. And it is a definite big deal that you're going to face when you go to altitude, Mr. Clancy. Right. And just prepare for it. Try to get there early.
So I know, number one, Carl's up there going, dumb butt. and
oh yeah. Well, I guarantee you. I mean, he knew. But if I'm going to tell you right now, if Carl Gamage told me to try something, I was going to do it. You know, if he told me a jackrabbit to pull a freight train, you better hook it up.
And the other disclaimer is we are not sponsored by Walmart. I just want people.
No, we're not sponsored by Walmart. So, we are not. But I'm going to tell you, Carl was right. It's just not much you can do to prepare yourself for that heaviness that you're going to feel. So, you know, I listened to some guys that were my doctors and stuff like that. So, well, you know, you can get on some aspirin, try to help you out. But the most important thing is to get there a couple of days early and acclimate. And I think Cole Wilkes said a mouthful when he said, hey, boys, don't go kill yourself the first couple of days out. Pace yourself, you know.
Yeah,
I remember a year when Luis showed up, man, and I mean, he was gung ho. We set camp up in the middle of a hailstorm in the morning, and he went with Joe and them. I've been there before. I stayed in camp and stayed asleep, and Joe, he went out, and man, he was rough for the next few days, you know, because he went hard, you know, and it's something you got to pay attention to. For sure.
I was trying to keep up with Joe and Chav, man.
Yeah.
The very first morning after, you know, only a couple hours of sleep. But I don't regret it. I saw my first elk there.
I'm going to give a teaser, man, because one of our shows that is coming up following this one prior to us coming back is I just did an interview with Bob the Billy Goat Collins, and he is from upstate New York. He wanted me to make sure that he, you know, after we got off the air, he said, Joe, he said, I wasn't going to say this on the air, but I want you, when you see Gilbert, to let him know that I am one of those packing and hauling type Billy Goats. I'm not that hugging and therapy kind. So don't him be hugging on me. No, so
unbelievable.
But we have a great conversation because Bob is 66 years old, and they call him the Billy Goat for a reason. And he's been hunting up in the mountains for 20 some years. And he talks about things like altitude sickness and preparing and pacing and all of these different things. It is a great conversation. So I know you guys will really enjoy that. That's coming up here in the next couple of weeks as well as you listen along. So,
you know, one last thing about what Cole said is important to eat. And we try to bring bananas with us too, to keep potassium in our bodies. And I'll tell you another thing that I started using with my athletes too is pickle juice. So I'll have pickle juice with me too, because I can get cramped up pretty quick. Especially me, I sweat like crazy, man, anyway, when I'm in the mountains, even when it's cold. So
I was going to say some salt pills.
Yeah. I have to really make sure I take.
You have a saying for people sweating. Joe.
No, he doesn't. He does not have one. Man. So. Don't even try, Manano.
That's only for elk camp, man. That's only for elk camp.
When you say you brought
we make people feel that they are in elk camp. So
Yeah,
I was going to ask when you say you brought the banana.
Joe shut that one down quick, didn't he?
yeah, no, we're not going on leash right now.
What'd you bring the bananas for?
Yeah, you'll hear it later.
And the other thing,
It's like he'll bless us with it later.
and you mentioned the sodium, Gilbert, but there's something, it can go the other way too, because especially these guys that are doing backpack hikes that aren't drinking enough and they're doing high sodium foods, and a lot of these foods that you add water stuff, a lot of them
high
are
in
really
sodium.
high in sodium, and man, it can do you the other way too. So you got to be careful with that, and you got to make sure, like Cole said, that you're drinking water, man. So,
You betcha.
bro, why don't you close this out?
Sounds good. Guys, if you like what we're doing, please subscribe, rate, and review us. You got to go to Apple Podcast or iTunes to review us, and you can check out more elk hunting content at ElkBros.com. And a reminder, if any of our listeners would like their questions answered on the show, just send your questions to info, that's info, at ElkBros.com. Guys, a tremendous show, some really good nuggets about our failure points, many more things for us to discuss. We wish all of our grinders out there and all of our listeners a very safe and awesome summer. We'll be back to you guys soon. And like we say down here in the Lone Star State, husbands, kiss your wives. Wives, kiss your husbands. Hug your babies, keep your broadhead sharp and your powder dry. And we'll see you next week right here on Blue Collar Elk Hunting.
And you've been hearing it, and you've been hearing it, and you're going to hear it again. Our brother Tony Wintrip closing out the show.
Absolutely.
Peace, everybody.
Peace.
We hooked up on a Friday night for a popcorn and a Pepsi. I ain't much of a city boy, but I'll see how far it gets me. Yeah, we talked of how we grew up and how we both were raised, and things that meant the world to us, and how we'd spend our days. And I said, just so you know, there ain't no surprise. These 6 words from my heart may open up your eyes. Girl, you're gonna miss me in September. I'll be on a mountaintop on a 3-week bender, where the bull elk call my name, and every year it's the same, until you see a headstone with my last name. Girl, you're gonna miss me in September. Now I remember weeks ago when we stood head to toe. You said the words, I love you, boy, and I said I told you so. There was something about you I couldn't resist, and a few things off of my bucket list that I had shared with you, but this last one I couldn't do. 'Cause girl, you're gonna miss me in September. I'll be on a mountaintop on a 3-week bender, where the bull elk call my name, and every year it's the same, until you see a headstone with my last name. Girl, you're gonna miss me in September. Now of all the times she watched me pack and walk away, yeah, the wind switched from the south side and started blowing in my face, and I now as I drove up Lonely Mountain Road. I can still hear her tone when she said, boy, you're gonna miss me in September. I'll be on a shopping trip and give you something to remember. When the bullet call your name, and every year it's the same. You're gonna come home to a headstone with your last name. I said, girl, you're gonna miss me in September. I'll be on a mountaintop and I'll live my life forever where the bullet call my name, and every year it's the same. I'll be on my own time, no one else to blame. Girl, you're gonna miss me in September. You're gonna miss me in September.